Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are taking just one single document and pulling it apart.
Just one, but it's a crucial one.
Absolutely. We're diving into the GWT2 Energy forecast. It's titled Winter Storm Projections and Restaurant Operational Impacts 2026.
And the date on this is key. It was issued on January 12th, 2026, so it's very fresh. And you have to understand what GWT2Energy is. They aren't, your typical weather channel.
Right. This isn't a general forecast.
Not at all. They specialize in predictive modeling for infrastructure, for utilities. They take the big official outlooks from NOAA, other federal sources, and they translate that data into potential business disruptions. It's really tailored intelligence.
Exactly. It's designed to quantify the risks that keep operations managers up at night. So our mission here for you is to extract the key strategic insights from this across 3 timeframes.
The 7-day, the 14-day, and then the big one, the 21-day trend.
Right, which takes us all the way into early February. We need to know where this cold is headed, what it means for supply chains, for energy grids, and, whether you should even bother keeping your outdoor patio open.
And before we get into the maps, we have to understand the triggers. GWT2 has these operational red flags they look for.
Okay, what are they?
It's mostly about temperature extremes that put stress on systems, especially HVAC. So 3 main points. First, sustained lows dropping below 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
Second, highs getting above 95 degrees. And third, and this one is probably the most important, any temperature anomaly of 15 degrees Fahrenheit or more.
And an anomaly just means a deviation from the historical average for that day.
Exactly, because that tells you you're dealing with true, non-seasonal stress on the system.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with the most immediate risks. The first week, January 13th through the 19th. What is the clear, dominant threat here?
What's really fascinating is just how clear it is. The source isn't hedging its bets. For this first week, it's overwhelmingly about extreme cold.
How extreme?
They're calling it Polar Vortex influences, and they're giving it a 75% likelihood. That's a very substantial probability when you're planning for business continuity.
75% is, that's practically a certainty in weather modeling this far out. But let's clarify that term, polar vortex influences. People hear that and just think of, a lot of snow.
Right, but it's more than just snow. It's the engine driving the freeze. The polar vortex is this huge, swirling mass of cold air that normally stays put over the North Pole.
Usually.
Yeah. But when it gets unstable, a piece of it can bulge and dip south. And that's what drags that brutal Arctic-level cold down into the U.S. And GWT2 is saying this initial push is immediate, and it's severe.
How severe?
They're projecting temperatures 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit below average for the Northeast and Midwest.
So this is not your typical January chill. We're talking about cities like Boston, Minneapolis. They're facing conditions that could seriously impact ground transport, delivery logistics, right in this first week.
That's your immediate choke point. If you rely on trucks moving sensitive ingredients, this is a huge problem.
And in terms of other risks?
Well, that's the thing. The picture is simplified because the risk is so one-sided. For non-cold risks, the outlook is quiet. Tornado warnings are minimal, maybe a 10% chance. Isolated in the southeast, they cite Birmingham.
And hurricanes?
Negligible odds, less than 5%. We're in the off-season. And critically, no high temps above that 95-degree threshold anywhere. So week 1 is all about the deep freeze.
That helps focus the mind and the budget. So if the Northeast and Midwest are getting hit in week 1, how does that change when we look out 2 weeks to January 26th? Does the cold pull back?
No, not at all. This is where it gets more dangerous. It doesn't retreat, it expands. The likelihood of lows below 40 degrees stays very high. It only dips a little to 70%.
So a 5% drop, is that statistically significant or is it just noise?
It's really just noise. The key takeaway isn't that small probability shift. It's the geography. The scope grows dramatically.
It's spreading.
It's spreading. Now it's across the entire east and central U.S. It's not just a regional problem for the Great Lakes anymore. It's becoming a national logistical challenge.
And the severity of the anomalies in that second week, they're shocking. Chicago is projected to see anomalies of negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
20 degrees below their historical average for that time, yeah.
And Philadelphia is at negative 15. When you have that kind of geographical spread and that level of severity, that's a huge stress on the national supply chain.
That's the strategic point right there.
It's not just about keeping the dining room warm anymore. It's about whether the produce that started in California even makes it to your distributor without freezing solid.
Exactly. An anomaly on that scale turns a cold snap into a system-wide emergency. Restaurant delivery schedules fail, sure, but energy costs can spike catastrophically. HVAC systems are just fighting nonstop.
What about those secondary risks? Do we see any other threats emerge in the 2-week outlook?
A slight uptick, but it's still pretty minimal. Tornado warnings nudge up to a 15% chance, maybe along the Gulf Coast, places like Houston.
Driven by the cold front itself.
Right, but tropical activity is still inactive. And the source does mention some brief warmer pockets out west, which might be some relief there. But the main story, the thing every manager needs to focus on, is sustained, expensive cold in the east and central regions.
So 2 weeks out, persistent cold, wider geography, deeper severity. Okay, let's go to the final period. The full 21 days, stretching to February 2nd. What does 3 weeks of unrelenting cold mean for our infrastructure?
This is where you get into long-term strategic decisions. Because the forecast projects an ongoing tenacious trend. The likelihood of lows below 40 degrees, it's back up to 75%.
Wow. So it's not a transient event.
No, this isn't something that passes in 10 days. This is a multi-week siege of cold.
A 3-week siege. And the anomalies? They're the most severe in the entire report for this period. We're seeing 15 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit below average, pretty much across the entire North, Midwest, and East.
The report specifically calls out cities like Detroit and Washington, D.C. as being affected by these long-term anomalies.
And when you see 21 straight days of that kind of deep freeze,
Right.
the risk shifts, right? It goes from being about high cost to being about actual infrastructure failure.
Precisely. The systems are fighting extreme conditions for 3 full weeks. Think about a restaurant kitchen. The risk of utility failures? Frozen pipes. It goes up exponentially. Or think about backup generators. They aren't designed to run efficiently at negative 10 degrees. It's just infrastructure fatigue.
Let's connect that to operations. For our listeners managing these places, when Detroit or D.C. are facing this for 3 weeks, you're talking about frozen grease traps, which can shut a kitchen down instantly.
Instantly.
Outdoor patios that restaurants spend a fortune on, they're completely non-viable. That's 3 weeks of lost revenue. This is about more than the thermostat. It's about emergency resources running out.
Resource management failure, yes. And employee safety, too. Getting to and from work in those conditions becomes a major liability.
And a final check on the other risks for the full 3-week period.
It's pretty static. Tornado warnings are still scattered, low-end threats, maybe 15 to 20% in the southern plains. Hurricane activity is minimal. The interesting note is that temperatures might start to moderate out west in this final period.
So the pattern might finally be starting to shift there.
It might. But for the entire central and eastern U.S., the massive defining operational risk is extreme, sustained, expensive cold. And still, no highs above 95 degrees anywhere.
So let's synthesize this. What does it all mean? The one big takeaway from this GWT2 forecast is this consistent high probability threat. We're talking 70 to 75% of widespread, sustained, extreme cold right through early February.
It's not about a single storm.
No. It's that your systems, your budget, your supply chain, they're facing 3 straight weeks of fighting temperatures that are 15 to 25 degrees below normal.
Yeah.
That means you have to plan for infrastructure vulnerability, for utility budgets, for things like frozen pipes.
That's the perfect summary. Which brings us to the final and maybe the most critical point, something the source itself really wants us to think about.
The disclaimer.
The disclaimer. GWT2 includes a very strong one. They remind the rater that this is an informational summary. It's based on complex models, and it is explicitly not an official real-time prediction.
Because weather can shift on a dime.
It can. So the critical lesson for you, for the listener, is how to balance these very high probabilities we've just discussed against the absolute need for official real-time confirmation.
And that's the essential question for any manager, isn't it? If a specialized firm like GWT2 gives you a 75% chance your heating bill is about to explode and your pipes might freeze, do you wait?
Do you wait for the National Weather Service to make it 100% official?
Or do you start implementing your contingency plan right now? Ordering backup fuel, checking on your generator maintenance.
Precisely. The power of a forecast like this isn't that it's a crystal ball. Its power is that it's a mandate for proactive risk mitigation. The lesson is you have to keep consulting those official sources, NOAA, NWS, the SPC, but the strategic decision, based on this probability. Preparation isn't optional anymore. It's mandatory, effective today.
You act on the high probability.
You act on the high probability, and you check the official data constantly.